Well, first of all, in the NLT in Psalm 40, verse 2, he lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. I think that's what we need today. But the king shall rejoice in God. Everyone who swears by him shall glory. But the mouth of those who speak lies shall be stopped. And I think that that's what we need to pray for our nation, that all mouths of all liars will be stopped. And now, the theme of this whole thing that we're going to talk about is the theme that comes out of on the road to Emmaus when Yeshua, I might say Jesus, I might say Yeshua, but I hope you bear with me. And he said, when he walked with them and he talked to those two men, disciples who were quite discouraged, O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. In that we're in the book of Revelation, I wanted to give a quick review, and I'm hopefully make it quick. The purpose for Revelation, it is the book, the revelation, the prophecy of Yeshua, Jesus, about his second advent. So that's the primary purpose of this book, about the second advent and the events preliminary to it. It is a call for his church to wake up, clean up, look up, and stand up. And behold, he is coming with clouds. Every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. Even so, amen. So the author, we should know, it says, we don't often say, well, John the Apostle. No, the revelation of Jesus Christ, the prophet. That's what I want everybody to, he is the prophet. And he's giving this, which God gave him to, to give to the churches. So the writer is actually his servant John, is John the Apostle. Where was the writer when he wrote it? He was on the Isle of Patmos. Why? For the testimony of Jesus Christ. Note that testimony, and we're talking about witness, they use the same Greek word. We're talking about the two witnesses, we're talking about the testimony. They're the same. They're used the same Greek word. All right, who is responsible for putting John there? I think this is important. We want to get, we're starting the Gospel of John, and we had a nice review last week to begin the Gospel, and it's nice that he fits it in right with John's end time writings. So the Gospel, I believe, all of John's writings that we have in Scripture are written about the same time. They carry the same thread, they carry the same warnings, they carry the same thing about witnessing. So anyway, the Roman Emperor Domitian, who ruled from 81 to 96 AD, he was trying to stamp out the rapid growth of the Christian church and actually reestablish the pagan deities in the Roman Empire. So we believe that this was written anywhere between 95 and 96 AD. That was right at the probably just before his release from the Isle of Patmos. Okay, to whom was it written? We know it was written to the seven churches in Asia. This is important. This is because this is an end time prophecy, and it's to seven churches, which represents all churches. If you write, it's like the church at Ephesus, the church at Smyrna, Pergamus, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Did you notice there's no Baptist churches here, no Congregational, no Catholic? So all of God's people belong to one of this church groups. So somehow we have to learn to identify. That's a whole new subject, which I really enjoyed studying. So where is the Isle of Patmos? Now it's just off of Ephesus. If you look at the Isle there, Patmos, my cursor won't highlight in that area. So just off of Ephesus and on Asia Minor, which is modern day Turkey, is all of the churches. And it goes into kind of a circle. If you follow it, you go from Ephesus north to Smyrna to Pergamus, around to Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. An interesting thing, there were several other churches right in this area. In fact, just from Laodicea by, a couple of millimeters on this map was Colossus, the church at Colossae. So that is interesting. He selected these 7 churches for a definite reason. And I say, why these 7 churches? It is my opinion. They symbolize a composite of the whole body of Christ, even to this day. Not just 7 eras, but all 7 together in any era. It is a combination of both. It's not only that reading through our church history, I can see definitely each one of these churches having an era. And so we're down to the end of the church eras, but still all of these churches exist side by side, and there's a reason for it. I don't know if I'll cover all of that. Which was the prominent church? This is important. Ephesus was the prominent church. It was a major port city of the Roman Empire to Asia Minor. If you read in Acts 19:10, and this took place for 2 years, so that all who lived in Asia heard the word of the Lord, both Jews and Greeks. This particular statement is a key to the Ephesus fault. It's not they had a fault. The Ephesus era or the Ephesus church. They left their first love. And I wrestled with God about that. Simply because reading the early church histories, that church was known for its love long after this revelation was written. Okay, why the number 7? Okay, 7 means fullness, complete. It's used 54 times in the book of Revelation. Okay, what are some of the blessings promised to the churches? We need this background so we can understand a little bit more about the 2 witnesses. To those who hear, overcome, and endure to the end, the crown of life, will eat of the tree of life, will not be hurt by the second death, will receive a new name, will have authority over the nations. This is important as well. That authority over the nations is a key to our calling. We will be dressed in white garments representing honor. We will be kept from the hour of testing. This has something to do with the 2 witnesses. We'll be a pillar in the temple of God. We'll receive the name of the Father, the Son, and New Jerusalem. We'll sit with our Master on his throne. Okay, symbolism. We have a lot of symbolism in Revelation, but if we're patient and we believe that all that the prophets say, we can just about iron all of this out. And I wrote in Revelation 1, our Master said to us, as for the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are 7 angels, and the 7 churches, the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the seven churches. This, again, is a key to our understanding the two witnesses. In Luke 8:10, and he said, to you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but to the rest it is in parables, in order that seeing they may see, and hearing they may not see. I'm sorry. And hearing they may not understand. Okay, I'm trying to move right along here. All right, what is the primary purpose of this prophecy for us? He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. This is repeated for each church, all seven of them, that same statement. Okay, he who has an ear to hear, that means hear, listen, heed to the prophecy of Yeshua, to the prophet Yeshua. Moses said, the Lord, this is out of Acts 3:22. I'm using, normally I'll put NAS for New American Standard. The one below it is EAS for the English Standard Version. Otherwise, most all of these are out of the New King James Version. The Lord shall raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. To him you shall give heed in everything he says to you. So it's talking about a prophet, and we need to give heed to everything he says to us. And a voice came out of the cloud saying in Luke 9:35, this is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. And in Luke 11:28, but he said, blessed are those who hear the word of God and observe it. So we were admonished continually in this to listen to the prophet. Okay. The spirit of prophecy. This is another thing. Okay. Revelation 19:10. And of your brethren who have the testimony of Jesus. This is a common statement going through Revelation, the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. I wonder why Paul, the Apostle Paul, admonished us with all of the gifts that God gives. He says, you should desire and pray for prophecy, so that we might be a little bit more like our Savior, the prophet. When things don't go as we think they should. Well, this is on the road to Emmaus. So let's read this little section here in Luke 24, starting at verse 13. And behold, two of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus. And they were conversing with each other about all things which had taken place. Now, I think that's what we do today in the times that we're in, wondering about the political situation and wondering, where is our Lord? Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. And he said to them, what are these words that you are exchanging with one another and you are talking about? And they stood still looking sad. That's why I don't put the video on. And he said to them, what things? And they said to him, the things about Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. And he said to them, O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and to enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and with all the prophets, He explained to them things concerning himself in all the scriptures. Yeshua's prophecy to the churches. Now, this is from the Father to the prophet to the churches, a blessing. Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy. This is talking about the prophecy, the revelation, and heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near. For the seven churches, saying, write in a book what you see and send it to the seven churches. So this is applicable to all the seven churches. And I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me. And having turned, I saw seven golden lampstands. Write therefore the things which you have seen, the things which are, the things which shall take place after these things. So, what John was seeing, he was to write in a book and send it to all seven churches, which are represented by the seven golden lampstands. A major key to understanding the revelation. And the seven lampstands are the seven churches. Okay, now let's go finally about the two witnesses in Revelation 11. Remember, God requires at least two witnesses. That's a hint for why there may be two. In some commentaries, it says this is only figurative because of the need of two or more witnesses. They are called emphatically my two witnesses. Now let us go on. I'm going to give you just a slight background. In order to understand all of this, let's just back up and start in Revelation 10, verse 8. Then the voice I heard, this is John the apostle, the writer, the author, not the author, I'm sorry, the writer. I heard from heaven, spoke to me again, saying, go, take the scroll that is open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went to the angel and told him, give me the little scroll. And he said to me, take and eat it. It will make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. And I took the little scroll from his hand, from the hand of the angel, and ate it. It was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was much made bitter. Now, let's just go back and look at it. What did that ever happen in the past? Well, let's see what if another prophet said anything. Remember all of the prophets. Ezekiel 3:1 says, then he said to me, son of man, eat what you find, eat this scroll, and go speak to the house of Israel. This is a hint for you that are listening and reading. So I opened my mouth and he fed me this scroll. Then I ate it and it was sweet as honey in my mouth. Very similar to what John, the apostle, had to go through. Could this have anything to do with John's future role? How can this be? The next verse that was told John after he ate the scroll, and I was told, you must again prophesy about many peoples and nations and languages and kings. Wait a minute. John is in his 90s. John is in captivity. John is very old. In fact, when he was released from captivity, according to some early church writings, he was carried on a litter between the churches so that he might minister. How could it be about many peoples and nations and languages and kings. Peter, seeing him, said to Jesus, "But Lord, what about this man?" And Jesus said to him, "If I will that he remain till I come, what is that to you? You follow me." Interesting. So now we move into chapter 11. Now we just went from the last verse was John was told that he's got to prophesy again after he ate the scroll. When Ezekiel wrote the scroll, he had to go prophesy to the house of Israel. Then John then says, right then, after he ate the scroll and what he was told, then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood, saying, "Rise up and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there." There was no earthly temple at this time. So this must have been a vision or in heaven, right? Because in Revelation 4:1, after the revelation of the vision and the seven church admonition, and he had to write that down. In chapter 4, after the seventh church, letter to the seventh church, after these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, "Come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place after this." After what? After his writings to the prophecies to the seven churches. Going into verse 3, and I will give power or authority. This is an inserted verse, but it's implied to my two witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. That's 3.5 years. These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands standing before the God of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. Now, did God ever do that in the past? Let's see. 2 Kings 1:12. So Elijah answered and said to them, "If I am a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men." And fire from God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. Of course, we should all know the story. We need not go there. It happened again. The third time, that man came very cautiously before Elijah. Well, we also have in Jeremiah 5:14, "Therefore, thus says the Lord God of hosts, because you speak this word, behold, I will make my words in your mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them." Well, nothing new than in Revelation 3:11 and 4. Fire proceeds down, devours them out of their mouth. We already had that in 2 Kings and in Jeremiah. And what consumes them? Though you speak this word. In Luke 9:54. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, notice James and John, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" Interesting. It says something about John and James. They were a pretty black and white, very much like Elijah. And just hope so happens that maybe John is going to again prophesy before kings, etc., and nations. So I believe as the 12 spies represented 12 tribes, Moses represented all Israel before Yod He Vav He. The elders represented their tribes. Jethro showed Moses about having representatives over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Exodus 18:19. I therefore believe. These two witnesses are leaders representing many. The many, two olive trees and two candlesticks worth. Again, remember, O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. So, where do we have anything about two olive trees? Zechariah. If you really want to find almost a lot of parallel to Revelation, read all of Zechariah. Zechariah was written to Joshua and to Zerubbabel at the time of the rebuilding of the temple. And if you go back and study that, it really had a slow start. Not only Zechariah, but Haggai prophesied and others. So this is coming about that time. But is there going to be building of another temple in the future? Could this Zechariah have anything to do with it? Believe me, if I had the time, I would read all of Zechariah and we would see. And the angel who talked with me came again and woke me, like a man who is awakened out of his sleep. And he said to me, what do you see? And I said, see, and behold, a lampstand, and all of gold, with a bowl on the top of it and 7 lamps on it. 7 lamps. 7 lips, that's channels on each of the lamps, and they are on the top of it. And there are 2 olive trees by it, one on the right hand of the bowl and the other on its left. And I said to the angel who talked with me, what are these, my Lord? Then the angel who talked with me answered and said to me, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, my Lord. Now listen to this. That's verse 5. Verse 6, he jumps right into this. How can this be? And he said to me, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel. Now these 2 olive trees on the right and the left of the lampstand, he's saying, what are these? This is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel was a governor. That represented the civil government, where Joshua was the high priest. That, if you would, that represented the spiritual side. Now here's what he said: not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also complete it. For who has despised the day of small things? But these 7, you have to read more to understand it, will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of the Lord which range to and fro through all the earth. So Zechariah 1:16 says, therefore says the Lord, my house shall be built. In it, declares the Lord of hosts, the measuring line shall be stretched upon it. You notice what happened in Revelation 11:1? A measuring rod was given to John, the Apostle John, and he was told to go measure the temple. And about the eyes, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro through this. We're going up here in the eyes of the Lord which reigns to and fro through the earth. 2 Chronicles 16:9, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to give strong support to those whose heart is blameless toward him. And in the midst of the elders, in Revelation 5:6, stood a lamb as though he had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Is there any connection? Yes, but we're going to say we're back in Zechariah now. After he talked about Zerubbabel, then I said to him, yes, but what are these two olive trees? And a second time I answered him and said, what are these two branches of olive trees which are beside the golden pipes from which golden oil is poured out? He said to me, do you not know what these are? No, my Lord. Was he going to get another Zerubbabel? Then he said to me, then he said, these are the two anointed ones who stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Back in Revelation, these are the two olive trees standing before the God of the earth. In Psalm 52:8, it says, but I am like a green olive tree in the house of God, referring to the righteous. Okay, what are the two trees? Two houses? Question mark. I'm not saying, but I almost am convinced. I will strengthen the house of in Zechariah 10:6. I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back because I have mercy on them. Two sticks of Ezekiel. I mean, yes, Ezekiel. Moreover, son of man, take the one stick. That word, the Greek or Hebrew, I'm sorry, word, Strong's word 6086, it can refer to tree. So take one stick, write upon it Judah, and for the children of Israel and his companions. Take another stick and write upon it Joseph, for the stick of Ephraim, and for the house of Israel, his companions. Okay, what about the broken branches? And Jeremiah says, Lord called your name green olive tree. Who's he talking to? He's talking to Israel, lovely and of good fruit. And its branches are broken. And the Lord of hosts who planted you has decreed disaster against you, because the evil that the house of Israel and the house of Judah have done. Now in Romans 11:6, it says, if the root is holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you being a wild olive tree were grafted into it, then, and which, uh, and with them become partaker of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. Now, in Galatians 3:7, it just shows that anyone who is baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female. For you are all one in Christ, Jesus. And if you are Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So we all can be part of an olive tree. I'm not even going to go into the details. I think it is self-evident. The lampstands, Revelation 1:5, and from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, our prophet, the prophet, and in the midst of the seven lampstands, one like the Son of Man. And the mystery, the seven lampstands, which you saw, are seven churches. There are the two lampstands in Revelation 4 standing before the Lord, before the God of the earth. I think it's pretty evident that two of the lampstands are being represented by the two witnesses and the two olive trees, and who I think there are two leaders of these two groups. So that's my take on that. We've talked about the two olive trees and Zechariah, that seems to indicate that. But a little further, I mean, if you don't believe that about the two witnesses, let's just go take a little short tour about witnesses. We are to be, in John's writings, witnesses and testifying is used 62 times in John's writings. 62 times witness is used. In Smith, it says in the New Testament, the original notion of a witness is exhibited in the special form of one who attests his belief in the gospel by personal suffering. Hence, it is that The use of the ecclesiastical term martyr, the Greek word for witness, has arisen. And the true witness is Jesus Christ, who gave his life for us. Okay, John the Baptist was a witness. He was not the light, but he came to bear witness of the light. And in Malachi 4:5, behold, I will send Elijah, the prophet, before the coming and great of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So this is the dual prophecy. Elijah, John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah, which Yeshua attested to, and I believe he is coming again. Okay, now John the Baptist says John's witness was about the light, the purpose of the light stand. We are the lampstand. The church is a lampstand. Jesus Christ is the light. You have sent to John, and he has borne witness to the truth. John 5:35, he was the lamp that was burning and shining, and you were willing to rejoice for a while in his light. And then in John 1:9, it says, there was the true light, which coming into the world enlightens every man. But as many as receive him, to him gave he the right to become the children of God, even to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. In Matthew 5:14, Yeshua said, he wasn't speaking just to his disciples. This is a sermon amount to all of the gathering, the whole people that were gathering before him. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. And it gives light to all in the house. So it's not just one person. Yeshua is speaking to his disciples. But when the Helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth that proceeds from the Father, he will testify, that means witness of me, and you also will bear witness because you have been with me from the beginning. Okay, so we go into John. For Pilate, therefore, this is interesting. The cause of Yeshua's coming. Here he's going to witness and testify. Are you, Pilate therefore said to him, are you a king then? Jesus answered, you say rightly, I am a king. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness of the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Remember the admonition to the church? He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The Apostle John said he was a witness. In 1 John, again, written all about the same time, life was manifest, and we, the apostles, have seen and bear witness and declare to you that eternal life which was with the Father, was manifest to us. It is the Spirit that bears witness. 1 John 5:6. And it is the Spirit who bears witness, because the Spirit is truth. Okay, here it is, folks. Here's where we turn up being a witness. And we have the witness of God. If 1 John 5:9, for this is the witness of God, which he testified of his Son. He who believes in the Son of God has the witness in himself. For he who does not believe God has made him a liar, because he has not believed the testimony or the witness that God has given his Son. I like to just stop and comment. We've been in the political situation. There's in the Republican Party that we have here in the States. They have what they call the rhinos, RINO, which is Republican in name only. I'm coining the phrase, there are a lot of kainos, Christians in name only. Maybe that's why there are only 2 lampstands and not 7, because so many are Christians in name only. We have to stand up. We have to wake up, clean up, look up, and stand up. There's going to come a day of trouble. Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me. How do we glorify him? How is God glorified? By the witness. How did Yeshua manifest his glory? John 2:11. This beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed him. That was the turning of the water into wine. John 14:11. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me, or else believe me for the sake of the works themselves. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes me, the works that I do, he will also, and greater works than these, he will do, because I go to the Father. I'm approaching the end. How shall we manifest his glory? In Acts 1:8, but you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. You shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, in all of Judea and Samaria, and to the end of the earth. Not just for the 11, but 120 was this. Uh, and then on that first day after they received it, 3,000 more. So it's not just the disciples. Here's food for thought. Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half a time, 3.5 years, when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered. All these things shall be finished. I wish I had time to go on and read. Let's try to do a quick summary. The revelation is a prophecy from the Father to Messiah to the churches. The churches are figuratively the whole body of Messiah, 7 lampstands. There will be 3.5 years of witnessing by 2 witnesses, 2 olive trees and 2 lampstands. These witnesses will have great power. There will be 2 primary witnesses representing 2 groups. This is my understanding. These groups are essentially the same in character and power. Scripture proves we are called to be Messiah's witnesses. In Zechariah 4, the lampstands and the 2 olive trees. Same vision as in Revelation 11:4. The olive trees may be the 2 houses of Israel. From the revelation, the 2 lampstands appear to be the 2 churches. The first 3.5 years is critical to the prophecy because at the end, after about the 2 witnesses, after that end, is the end of the 6th trump and the second woe. The Antichrist will reign. That to me is a shattering when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered. That's the end of this 3.5 year period. Then the 7th trumpet and the 3rd woe and the day of the Lord. This is just a reference to all of the signs and the wonders that were performed by the early apostles, bearing witness to the word of his grace, granting that signs and wonders be done by their hands. These have the testimony, the witness of Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, those that have the testimony or witness of Yeshua, the Messiah, will yet be empowered with the Spirit, enabling them to be as the first disciples or apostles of Yeshua. We get that from Joel 2. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out after what? That I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons, your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also on my manservants and on my maidservants, I will pour out my spirit in those days. And I will show wonders in heaven and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. Then the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord. And it shall come to pass that whosoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, among the remnant who whom the Lord calls. And in John 14, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will also, and greater works. Down in verse 16, he will give you another helper. And John 15, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire. Maybe a little bit like Elijah when he called the fire, come down. It shall be done for you. For my Father is glorified that you bear much fruit, so that you will be my disciples. You did not choose me, but I chose and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit. What is the fruit? That the Father may be glorified through the works. It says in John 15:24, if I had not done among them the works which no one else did, they would have no sin. But now they have seen and also hated both me and my Father. It goes on, but verse 26, but when the Helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, who proceeds from the Father, he will testify of me, and you also will bear witness, because you have been with me from the beginning. But remember, 1 John, we said, we have that same witness to all who believe the Son. Let's not make him a liar. It's interesting in this one, there in John 16, I have many more things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. So when did we get them? Maybe through his prophecy of Revelation? But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all the truth. For he will not speak of his own initiative, but whatever he hears, he will speak. And he will disclose to you what is to come. And he shall glorify me. He shall take of mine and shall disclose it to you. In all things that the Father has are mine. Therefore I said that he takes of mine and will disclose it to you. We can know what's happening by being prepared to be a witness. In NLT, the NLT version of Ephesians 5:15, be careful now, be careful how you live, not as fools, as those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity for doing good in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but try to understand what the Lord wants you to do. I am open for questions. I hope I can see the screen here.
Can can you hear me?
I can
Yes,
hear
I
you.
can.
Well, if not, I can get over closer to the server.
Okay.
But I wanted to let,
No,
I wanted to let
hear
other,
God.
others can comment first if they want, because I have extended comment. The first thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up quickly, is that I don't know if you remember Les McComb.
Yes.
He was one of the senior pastors in the church. Lived in Santa Barbara in the late 70s. Lost his wife to cancer. I went out to visit him as I was interested in preventative, alternative cancer methods. But he ended up sharing with me a paper he wrote on the Two Witnesses and had submitted it to Pasadena. And it was an excellent paper. Unfortunately, I never got my hands of the hard copy, but he gave me a thumbnail sketch of it while I was there. And he showed that the last three verses of Revelation 10 are the command and promise that John was going to be one of the two witnesses. Even as E.W. Bollinger says that chapter 11 is a fulfillment of the command to prophesy. You will yet prophesy. So you're quite correct that John is going to be one of the two witnesses, which requires him to be resurrected prior to the day of Yahweh. So I'll shut up and come in a little later after everybody's had a chance to comment.
Thank you.
He believed Daniel was the other prophet, two witnesses.
Yeah, I always struggled with the lampstands being, it says these are the churches, this is the angel, the messenger, and then it's like, okay, these two guys, and it just seems more logical that there'd be like a key speaker supported by others. So it seems to be a pattern. Christ went out forth, and then he had others that spoke, and then the same, it seems to be a pattern, and I can see it continuing on. Any other comments?
Well, if nobody's going to say anything.
Oh, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jim
I
here.
mean, if they want to jump in and interrupt me, that's fine.
I think Rod had something to say.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, when I was doing a study on the two witnesses, and I was thinking, okay, it sounds like there's only two witnesses during that time. Where's the rest of the assemblage? Are they gone? Are they in hiding? Are they dead? Or, what is the rest of them doing? Or have they been in a resurrection and gone to the wedding feast? So just, some thoughts. Okay, what are we doing here? Do we have anything that we can add in helping, or are we just, are we already been put down as far as being the power of being able to do anything? That's almost what it seems like. So where are we?
Well, I believe that it's pretty clear that we are called to be his witnesses, all of us, and that there's going to be a pouring out of his spirit again, like on the day of Pentecost for the first disciples, so that he will pour that out, because it definitely, Joel's prophecy is talking about the end time. So it's pouring out on everybody, the maidservants, young and the old and everyone, and giving them all a job to do. And that's not just two witnesses. out there in the front line, which there will be. That's pretty plain. But also, all of us will have the job of witnessing in power with authority, and that they cannot deny. It's when they finally, if you read on in Revelation 11, that they are just so happy when they're able to destroy us. And that's what it said in Daniel. When we're completely broken, when we have been shattered, then the Antichrist, if you would, the false prophet, and all of his people are rejoicing. But then comes the day of the Lord upon them. So we're at that whole scenario. I think we are living, and we are going to be empowered to witness to all people in our area. It doesn't, wherever we are, but it's going to be two of them, the primary ones, are going to take the forefront and be the ones that are going to be witnessing, you might say, at the head of all of this.
Okay. Rod had something to say as Mike, he had his phone open, and then Andersons have got their hands up. So, Rod, did you have something to say? We kind of ran you over. I didn't realize James Hassel has his mic open.
I think it's an interesting concept I never have heard before. But I go back to Revelation 3 and verse 8, where it talks about those not denying Christ. And of course, right now is the prime time where we won't deny Christ. We're not going to take the mark of the beast. And we're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And we're all going to have to be a witness in that matter of the mark of the beast or mask or whatever is going to take place beginning shortly. So we're all going to be witnesses if we don't deny Christ. And that's the Philadelphia area, and they're given power, they're given protection. So that was just my little comment.
Thank you. That was good. Andersons.
Yeah, it's me as usual who makes a comment. So I just wanted to make a quick comment that I find it very interesting that this is being studied so hard right now, Zechariah in particular, and all of these Joel, all of those places are being studied hard right now. Jim O'Brien we just did a fast and a prayer day, and he got the word out to many, I mean, around the world in a week's time, very quickly. And there were so many people fasting and praying on Sunday and on Wednesday and in the middle, because he put out the word for everybody to read Zechariah. And then he had several other places to read. And John was another, some things in Revelation and Joel. And I mean, there was like lots of them we were reading. But Zechariah was very much standing out, and he was pressing for people to read that Zechariah. And he said it was very comforting to him. And he pointed out the witnesses, that we need to stay strong and we need to stand and we need to be witnesses. And I mean, he was just really pressing this whole theme very, very adamantly. And he still is. Jim O'Brien, he's in Cincinnati. And then there's been some of my Sunday keeping friends, they've been pressing the same theme also, just hitting it hard. Some of them that are a little more not as blinded, I guess. They still worship on Sunday, but they see a lot of these things that a lot of their fellow people don't. And I'm noticing I've got clients who've come in my office in the last 2 weeks and have made statements concerning this very theme of being witnesses and standing strong and, not doing certain things and not taking certain things and, standing down. And I like putting things like that together. And I love when and you just see the hand of Yahweh. You just see it, and it grabs me, and it grabs my heart, and it chokes me up, and fills me up with such hope, and that that day is coming, and it's so real, because all this stuff is just being projected in so many places, and all these people and all of you that don't know the other one, that you don't know all these people that I've heard from, and it's just being projected all over the place at the same time. So I just thought I'd offer that, I guess, as an encouragement and some knowledge.
Thank you. We had Dan DeFranco on a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about his little movement. And he's into the tens of thousands of people now. And he's encouraging people to get together in their own neighborhoods, to get to know their neighbors, to study the Bible. And had a brief interchange with him texting. He goes, "I can't believe it." And I said, "Believe what?" He goes, I've been encouraging people to fast as a tool and for study and for humbling yourself. And he goes, "I got 20 or 30 messages from different directions," because he's building this web of people communicating about a Sunday fast. And this is amongst Lutherans, Presbyterians, Catholics, all the different faiths out there. And he was really encouraged. It's definitely God's working. There's definitely a calling. There's definitely people waking up and getting together. He was really encouraged. The feedback, if he sent stuff out, and it would come back stronger than he sent it. So there's definitely a word going out. Any other comments?
If I may, we had a question. 3 people back. A gentleman asked, "Where's the church going to be while the two witnesses 1260 days are transpiring?" Well, the only other place where 1260 is mentioned is in Revelation 12, verse 6. It says the left behind church is going to be in the wilderness during that period. However, that is subsequent to the second coming, not prior. When it says the two witnesses stand beside the Lord of the whole earth, which is the last verse of Zechariah 4, and it says basically the same thing in Revelation 11. And there it uses, I believe, and prosthon. It means to be in front of, to be in the presence of. Yeshua is going to be extremely active during those 1260 days. He has a church in the wilderness that he has to purge out the rebels from and bring them teaching that they never got from the pulpit, that they need in order to mature and ripen. And the day of Yahweh does not start at the end of the 1260. The day of Yahweh period of all the Old Testament prophets starts at the opening of the 7th seal. And the second coming is obviously at the 6th seal, because you have saints from every tribe and tongue and nation worshiping day and night before the throne of the Father. Those are the first ripe out of all the nations. And then you also have 144,000 Israelites who I believe are going to be teaching the church in the wilderness. And they also follow the Lamb wherever he goes. And I submit to you, they're not following the Lamb up in the third heaven. They're following the Lamb down here, who has a 70th week to fulfill. One last point I would like to make. I know I can't prove all these points in 3 minutes, but submitted, if you want to understand that there are 2 3.5-year periods, and that the 42 months are not synonymous with the 1260, then you have to combine chapter 11, verse 7 and 8 with chapter 9. There and tell you that the two witnesses, their 1260 days is brought to an end when the 5th trumpet plague of chapter 9 is blown. That trumpet, the beast comes out of the bottomless pit and makes war upon the two witnesses and overcomes and kills them. Well, that beast doesn't come out of the bottomless pit until the two witnesses have finished calling down the 4 trumpet plagues, and they die at the 5th trumpet plague. And from the 5th trumpet plague until Armageddon in chapter 19 or chapter 16, you have 42 months that the beast, which I believe is a Roman European entity, will have authority to make war for 42 months. But you said something in your presentation about the end of the two witnesses being a severe period of judgment, the second woe, and I believe that the captivity and deportation of our people takes place immediately at the end of the two witnesses prophesying. So that their 4 trumpet plagues are warning shots across the bow that if Judah and the house of Israel, which is this country, and Britain, do not repent, then they're going to go into captivity. And they suffer 2 years of captivity at the 5th and 6th woe, which will last a year each. So that's about as concise as I can make it.
I'm not denying that it all ends after Revelation chapter 11 specifically says that the two witnesses, when they complete their work, what you're getting into about what's happening was in chapter 12 is a summary also of, it's kind of a summary chapter. It talks about the woman clothed, that is pregnant and gives forth a child, and the dragon and all that goes on. And it talks about she's fleeing into the wilderness. And yes, I tend to agree that's when Christ is going to fulfill his remainder of his 7 years, which a lot of people don't understand. But it's an interesting thing because the two witnesses lie dead for 3.5 days, it says. If it's a literal 3.5 days, we don't know, or I don't know. But then all of a sudden they're resurrected and they come up into heaven somewhere, whether it goes all the way to heaven or just up into our local heaven. But then we know also that then all, if you would, hell breaks loose when the Antichrist comes forth after that, because that's when they're celebrating. And then that's when I think the abomination and desolation is going to be set up. And when the two witnesses, because that's going to be taken out of the way, we're going to be like a restrainer that's restraining him from doing that. That's our job as witnesses. We all have to be witnesses. And if we're not, we're going to end up being left behind, if you would. Because I believe with Revelation 12, in that summary, that when Satan comes down with all of that wrath, it's at the end of the two witnesses' testimony. And then they're brought up and they go somewhere. And I think that we're all going to go somewhere. There's something that, and I haven't pursued it completely, but I'm tending to think that we are going to be taken to a place of safety before Christ really stands on the Mount of Olives and it splits in two in Zechariah 14. So I think that that's the end of his other 3.5 year ministry. So, to have a perfect picture, I don't have it. But I mean, it's clear in Revelation 11 that the two witnesses, which I believe we're part of, ends our work. We are the restrainer, we're taken out of the way, and then the Antichrist, whomever, the false prophet, the beast, they have their way, but they've been witnessed to, they've been warned, but there are going to be some left behind. Because when Satan spews out of his mouth a flood to overtake the fleeing woman, which is spared for 3.5 years. Notice there are 3.5 years in that chapter 11 or chapter 12, I'm sorry. So, and then he goes back to make war on those that keep the commandments and have the testimony of Christ. So there's something there. I haven't got all the answers, but there does seem to be something that takes place at the end of the two witnesses' testimony.
Well, the one way to understand, and I don't know that it was ever explained to me all the time. I was in Worldwide beginning in 72, but why seals, why trumps, and why bowl judgments? Well, we know the bowl judgments are judgment on the beast power, and the beast is going to be able to control buying and selling all around the globe. So it's a one world government that is brought down there at the end of the seventh bowl judgment. But the trumpet plagues, I submit to you, are judgments on Israelite countries. And so the two witnesses are mainly, I think mainly bringing judgments on Israelite peoples and warning of captivity. The other rubric is the seals, which we're beginning to be in right now. They lead up to the second coming at the sixth seal. And so the seals are when the elect take their stand and refuse they say no to the vaccines. They say no to the control of our thoughts and control of our speech. And they exercise their right to witness now, early, and they ripen early. And they see these seals as being a sequence leading to the great tribulation of the fifth seal, which is the most widespread universal persecution of innocent saints, that will make the Middle Ages look like child's play. And that's where we're at right now. We're in the first and second seal. We're starting to see, we used to go from persecution of the Davidian Adventists down there in Waco, where the mothers allowed their 15-year-old daughters to be married off to David Koresh. And even though the government did not handle that correctly, they also did not have the Lord's protection. But nowadays, we have people being fined $125,000 just for not baking a wedding cake. And that's happened in at least four or five states: Idaho, Oregon, Colorado, and Kentucky. So we're getting into fifth seal territory here real soon. And it's going to wake an awful lot of people up, and that's exactly what the Lord wants.
Any other comments, suggestions, questions? Revelation is always a big subject, and there's a lot of interpretations of the different symbolism and timing. And
I'd like to make a comment, Don.
All right.
Um, it's so difficult when we're trying to deal with so much symbology and trying to assemble so many moving parts. And men have tried for centuries to try to make sense of it. And one of the pitfalls that I think happened years ago, and we're not immune to it today, is that people speak conjecture as though it were fact. It's a difficult thing because sometimes we think we have a nugget that's absolutely true. And we want to share it because we're excited about that nugget. And we have good intentions, like many teachers do. But when we're dealing with this kind of complex symbolism, we just need to use caution that we're not preaching conjecture as if it's fact. Because sometimes people will run with what you say. And then 5 years later, you change your mind on it. You took a different view of it and you've examined it closer. And now you changed your mind on it. But the people who heard you earlier, 5 years ago, they're still hanging on to what you said. So I just think it's good to have this warning that, teachers have a greater condemnation or a greater judgment against them if they're careless. So when it comes to Revelation, Zechariah, and all the rest, we certainly need to, really immerse ourselves in those sections of Scripture. There's no part of the Bible we should not thoroughly examine and try to figure out. But just be careful that we don't overstep our bounds and accidentally, not condemn ourselves, but accidentally lead someone down a path that just simply isn't true.
I've heard a lot of theories over the years. Just so Todd is aware, my wife was baptized or was brought into church in 64, I believe, 65. And I came in during the takeover of the church in 79. So, I mean, we've heard it, we've lived it. And one thing I try to do is I have a core set of ideas, but I don't immediately shun or get rid of someone else's thoughts, because that may help me to grow in an area that I may not have had a full picture. So it's good, and I encourage people to discuss their ideas about Revelation, about prophecy, about the witnesses, about the prophets, because we can all benefit from each other's viewpoints. But the one thing I do discourage is getting angry with your brother, having tantrums. This is the only way, and there's no other way. That's wrong. Sorry, that's just wrong. You can say, agree to disagree. I'm sorry, I don't see your point, and maintain the friendship and the open communication. And I think that's one thing that God is judging all of us on, is how are we treating each other during this time? And I really think there's gonna come a time where we're gonna have to get together, live together, and be together because we have no one else. So, was it we hang together or we hang separately? As an old saying back in Revelation during the Revolution. So that's just I'll get off my soapbox now of being nice to one another.
Yeah,
I would also
Can you hear me?
follow up my comment. I hope I don't offend anybody. I'm just glad that people do examine it and share what they know. And, we need to do that, and we have to do that year after year. So I just want to make sure people don't get me wrong about what I said.
no, not at all, Al. In fact, I really appreciate you saying that. I've grown up in this whole tradition, there in the whole 75 and being told that, I'll never go to college, never get married, all that good stuff. And one of the many reasons why I've steered away from prophecy because people were so dogmatic that this was going to happen or that was going to happen or whatever it may be. The turning point for me was when we had a session done by a guy named Stephen Collins. I don't necessarily agree with his perspective on British Israelism. There are some holes in that theory. And I know that that was a specific doctrine that was heavily promoted in many of the churches of God. But he talked about a minimal fulfillment of prophecy and a maximum fulfillment of prophecy. And so some people are saying a physical temple. Okay, but we are also the temple. Some people are saying that, and the whole entire altar and the outer court and all this other stuff has to be built and it has to be absolutely perfect. Well, can they just build a regular old altar to begin the sacrifices? I mean, that's it. It reminds me of when Christ came and the Pharisees knew what the prophecies were. I mean, they were expecting the conquering Christ. They did not expect at all, the Lamb. But the verses were there. They deliberately overlooked the minimal fulfillment of prophecy for the big thing, if that makes sense. And I'm not going to get caught up in, are the seals broken now, or have the bowls begun to be poured? Frankly, I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. And I'm sorry that I'm probably going to tick some people off. But in terms of the current situation, so many people have been looking for hopium in the wrong place and putting their faith in a man. And I've always wondered, and somehow I kind of knew this was going to be the outcome. And somehow I kind of knew that it was, for me anyway, God's way of reminding me that my faith was misplaced in the vessel and not, and it should be in him, if that makes sense. So I know that's not really a good cohesive statement. But in conclusion, the summary is, don't get caught up in looking for the big things when the little things can just as easily suffice. And please don't dismiss that small, still voice. And yes, current events are current events, but in the long run, make sure that your faith is properly anchored at this time.
John, John Benzinger, you had a comment? Your hand was up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, John, I appreciated, kind of got in a little bit later. When you put this out, Don, is there a possibility I can get his slides to PowerPoint? That'd be helpful. But just a couple comments. If anybody that's probably heard me talk, I'm a big proponent of a second Exodus. Jeremiah 16, Jeremiah 23, Ezekiel as well. So that's something that we should be looking at. And I think the comment that was made earlier about I guess in worldwide, they used to call it a place of safety. I'm not really sure I agree with that exactly the way it was proposed, but I think the scriptures in Micah 2, where it talks about the sheepfolds of Basra, I think it's a good study that would kind of say that that it talks about the breaker, the Messiah maybe it comes as the breaker at the sheepfolds of Basra. And so when you see when he sets his feet down on the Mount of Olives, it talks about his vesture being dipped in blood. Well, how did it get there like that? And so maybe there's a tie into some of what happens there, what we read in Micah. So anyways, just a couple comments, but I appreciate your message, John. And if you wouldn't mind sharing your slides, I'd appreciate it.
I think you did it. It's a Word document, one big Word document. So,
Okay, well, if you could share that, that'd be great.
yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of ideas out there, and we were singing the song. I think it was at the feast, and the song where it says, and the mount shall cleave in two, and by the valley you shall flee. And the person next to me at the feast elbows me and goes, and where does that fit in the scenario? And I had to think, where does that fit in the scenario? It just, there are so many pieces. So maintain, respect your brother and, think it out. Any other comments? So, okay, Blizzards have got their mic open. Did you have something more to say? And I think, oh, sorry, I missed James.
Oh, no,
Go
I
ahead.
just have it paused at my headphone and not at the computer, so no worries.
Okay. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have to think about Lazard's comment. It's like so many of us were hoping that the one who stood for law and order would get in again, would give us more time. But as she was saying, that's one of my favorite scriptures is Psalm 118, verses 8 and 9. And that's right between the shortest chapter in the Bible and the longest one. And Psalm 118, 8 and 9 says, it is better to trust in Jehovah than to put confidence in man. It is better to trust in Jehovah than to put confidence in princes. And that's the bottom line. And as far as, wonder how this is all going to impact us, our heart needs to be that the witness must go out, no matter what we have to do, no matter what we're supposed, but we're supposed to use wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in all this. But the bottom line is the witness needs to go out. And if it's going to be the two witnesses, or if it's going to be one of us or all of us, that needs to do something, that's the bottom line. Be willing to stand.
Anybody else? I'd like to jump in with it.
So, Todd, if you have any other comments, go ahead.
Yes, Isaiah 59, if you read up through verse 15, is clearly bespeaking the time we've just come through in this past year. It's talked about again in Hosea 7:1, and it's the fraud, the practicing of systematic fraud by Samaria. And Samaria is the deep state of Washington, D.C. We look for justice. We expect indictments to come forth. We're told that William Barr is a Republican and he's conservative. The problem is none of these people, whether it's the head of the NIH, the FDA, or the CDC, or the FBI, or the Justice Department, none of them are working for the people. They're working for Luciferians who Yahweh is going to eventually use to subjugate our people completely. And we're halfway there already. So I submit that we all need to read the first 15 verses of Isaiah 59, tied in with Hosea 7:1, and it tells you exactly what it's going to lead to. Yahweh saw it, and it displeased him. And there was no justice. He saw that there was no man. Why is there no man? Because nobody can fight against the beast. They got all the surveillance tools. They got all the power. They're going to call out the military to force us to take these vaccines. They wondered that there was no intercessor. Therefore, his own arm brought him salvation. And what does he do? He clads on with zeal a cloak and puts on the garments of vengeance for clothing. He puts on righteousness as a breastplate. I submit to you, to put all those things on, he has to stand up just as he stood up when he saw Stephen being martyred. And that is what's going to cause Yeshua to come back. When he sees, he's got to have some witness in the earth, and Israel is his witness, except that America is no longer anything but a negative witness. We are cursed to the nations, it says in Zechariah 8:13. And was another listener on this thing tonight that taught me that, Zechariah 8:13. He prophesies a time when the house of Judah and the house of Israel will no longer be a curse to the nations. And we are that curse right now. They're looking at our election system and they're saying, and you preach democracy around the world? And they're looking at the way the health agencies have handled this so-called virus crisis. We have nothing to give to the world except $3,500 a dose remdesivir, and they won't even prescribe that for the first stage until you've gone to the hospital. You have to be in the hospital before they give you remdesivir. My wife was diagnosed, and they gave her some Tylenol,
That's a no-no.
which has no antiviral effect. There has never been a greater fraud perpetrated on so many people than has been perpetrated in this past year. And I would pray that we would have eyes to see that this is the prelude to the last 5 verses of Isaiah 59. It doesn't get any worse than this.